Welcome to the ROI Masterclass, the podcast where vision meets strategy and bold moves create measurable results. I'm Liat Siegel, interior designer and ROI strategist with 17 years of experience. I help businesses transform properties and ideas into high-performing assets. This show is specifically for real estate investors, hospitality operators, and boutique developers who aren't afraid to take risks, challenge the status quo, and demand a return on every decision they make. Each and every week, we talk with innovators and leaders across industries about the strategies and the insights and really all the unconventional thinking that turns potential into profit every single time. If you believe that smart design, decisive leadership, and strategic risk are the keys to real ROI, you're in the exact right place. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the ROI Masterclass, the podcast where we talk with innovators and leaders reshaping the future of real estate, hospitality, and business. I'm your host, Liat Siegel, and today I'm joined by Jonathon Elliott, founder and managing partner of ADR Global Hospitality Services. With nearly 30 years in the industry, John's career spans luxury integrated resorts and independent destination hotels. From Caesar's Palace to the Venetian and Mohegan Sun, he's led teams, driven revenue, and helped shape guest experience across iconic properties. As the former regional director for preferred hotels and resorts in the Southeast Americas and Caribbean, John oversaw more than 50 luxury properties, delivering strategic sales, marketing, and revenue solutions. In 2022, he launched ADR Global Hospitality Services, offering targeted consulting to help hotels tackle complex operational and commercial challenges without the burden of long-term retainers. Today, we'll dive into how John turns industry complexity into actionable strategies that elevate both guest experience and the bottom line. Let's get started. Thank you so much for joining us, John. I really enjoyed our pre-podcast chat and everything that you're doing in the hospitality space. Tell us a bit more about you and how you got to where you are.
Thank you so much. And it's a pleasure to be here as well. So looking forward to the conversation. Just a little bit about me. It's been, like you noted there, 30 years working in Vegas, working in large resort casinos, working with a lot of independent hotels in Florida and the Caribbean. I just have a passion for the industry. I'm an avid traveler myself, so I'm constantly going to different countries as much as I possibly can. And I seek out boutique and unique hotels as places to stay, because of the experience that it adds to the entire trip. To me, being in a hotel or a resort or a villa is part of the experience of the travel, not just a place to sleep while you're on the travel. So I hope that gives you a little bit of insight into my line of thinking and why I'm in the industry and how it affects my life in general with travel and hospitality as an experience.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the experiential side of things. How much does design play into that?
I think it is extremely significant depending on the classification of the hotel. I think you, with your 3-star, 3.5-star Marriotts and Hiltons, the design concept is meant to be familiar, and it's meant to be reassuring to the traveler that constantly likes to stay with a certain brand. But then when you step into extremely large casino resorts, or you step into the boutique hotel world, the design, the color scheme, the concept, the style, it really makes a significant difference, because it's so important for the property to be what people saw when they were doing their research on when they're planning to travel. Does the pool and the ocean look the same? Is the deck overlooking the mountain at the ski resort, does it look like it looks in the pictures? Because that's the appeal and that's what draws people in. And the design, and like I said, the feel, the shape, the color schemes, the layout is so important to what people choose to pick when they want to go stay somewhere.
100%. We call that the online to offline effect, right? When somebody sees the online brand, are they experiencing that brand in the physical space, right? Our websites, if somebody goes on the website and it's outdated and they can't navigate properly and they don't understand how to get from point A to point B, they're going to bounce. and never going to purchase. And so the same is true in the physical space with the UX and UI, the user experience, the interface of how it flows, and also the brand continuity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the boutique side is one of my favorites because it creates that luxury where everything is different. And as long as what you saw on the website looks like what you see when you walk in the front doors, you know you've nailed it, because that's what people are expecting, as opposed to when it looks completely different or worn out, or it just doesn't function the way it looks like. But it's so important. It's so important to the overall guest experience.
And how much would you say that impacts the ability for the property to charge more, to be able to really increase their revenue?
I think it's very important in the aspect of, it depends on where your destination is. If you're building a hotel, designing a hotel, or opening a hotel in a destination like New York City and Manhattan, or London, or Paris, your look and feel is what's going to put you into a class of hotel and a rate category that there's that desire and want for. If you are a completely unique property on an island on a beach in the middle of nowhere, your look and feel is going to be very important, but you're not standing out against a comp set that is so deep and so vast that you really are creating that separation. So in your high density, high population business areas, high tourist areas, like I said, London, Paris, New York, Brazil, or Sao Paulo, that look and feel is what's going to separate you from the other hotels in your comp set. And it also is a clear benchmark for you as property as to what you can command in the higher level of ADR and the higher level of profitability as the seasons flow through and the rates change in the city.
So it sounds like you have to go back always to the comps and determine what are other people charging, and can we up level with how we stand out, and location obviously is very
I think it's very important to understand what you're building, who your comp set is, what your comp set looks like from a style and a palette almost as you walk in the door, and designing your hotel and creating that look and feel, especially on the boutique side. That's going to be so important for you to be able to then set your benchmark of where you want to be in the comp set. That is going to drive your revenue, your goal, your profits and your revenue based on what's happening in the city. Prices will always change. Recent trip to London, massive convention going on. Hotels were twice the normal price of what they usually are, but all the higher end are really high up. And then you go other times and you get the same hotel, it's lower, much lower price because it's an off-peak season, but it's still the top of the comp set. So having that design and that feel and that look and that desire for your property keeps you in the higher end of the comp set, regardless of where that rate positioning is. Mm-hmm. Which can be based on seasonality, holidays, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. It really gives you that strategic advantage. And what I'm hearing from you is both the design aspect of things, but also having a strategy and understanding the numbers and the data is really important. And tell me a little bit more. Let's rewind to how you got into what you're doing now, and what is it that you uniquely do for your clients?
My company was built with the idea and concept in mind after working with a lot of smaller boutique hotels, is that there's a lot of things that hotels want to accomplish in a operational standpoint, in a technology standpoint, in a revenue management standpoint, and marketing, but they don't have the depth and breadth within their team to accomplish these things. When you join a big brand or you join a soft flag, there's a lot of options that are available to you that you don't know how to take advantage of, or again, you don't have the depth and breadth of talent to take advantage of it. My company was designed to set up to come in on a very short-term contract on a very specific targeted aspect of what you want to accomplish. Either help you figure out what technology you need, help you figure out how to train your staff, help you figure out who to bring in as a contract employee, like a social media specialist or something along those lines, and then get the hotel set up so that they can maximize taking advantage of that to help drive the revenue that they want And mostly it comes down to driving the visibility within the concept, which then in turn drives the revenue basis and growth.
So what's that biggest lever in terms of visibility? I was just going to ask you, of all the services, of all the things that you do, what is the biggest driver of ROI? And you would say that that's visibility?
Visibility for me is key. And there's so many different aspects to that. Social media is so important in our lives in the last 8 years. Doing the right social media is important. Hiring the right person to do your social media for you is important. Hiring the right photographer to put the content on social media is important. Having a up-to-date website that all generations can use. There's so many bits and pieces that need to be folded in together to really nail down exactly the best visibility for your property. In this day and age, with so much of what we put online, whether it be content, press releases, guest reviews, all of these things, everything tying back into that vast network that comes through Google and now is tied into social media. You can't just focus on one aspect. You've got to make sure you've got all your bases covered. You're using relatively up-to-date technology, and you've got somebody with a talent for this aspect working for you, not just somebody just doing stuff because it needs to be done 3 times a week.
Right, exactly. Not just checking the boxes.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can't really have the visibility and you can't really have the good photographs if you don't have a beautifully experiential space for the guests to come to. Right. Like I was just doing ROI analysis for a client of ours, and we were looking through other hotels, and their pictures of their space were buried behind just stock images. And they were telling me that this hotel was very, very expensive. But when I looked deeper and I looked at their pictures after I finally found them on the site, no wonder they were hidden, because it was so dated. And so how much more so would a property be able to capture their audience, the experience, and have that online to offline continuity if they had, splashed on their hero image on the front page of their website or their social media all the experiences that they're going to have in the places that they're sleeping and that they're staying, that they're the amenities of the property.
It's vitally important, and I look at it from the standpoint of if your property, your room product, your lobby, your pool deck, if the images don't match what you're portraying on your website, you're going to get exposed, especially in this day and age of social media, by the guests taking their own pictures and posting them up on social media.
Wow.
So
right.
While it's so important to advertise the beauty and the flow and the design of what your product is, the fact that you have to maintain it and keep it updated, which kind of comes back to, one of the conversations we were having about where you start with your design so that you can maintain it, because maintenance costs to keep everything looking beautiful.
Yes.
Otherwise, you will get exposed in a social media world when somebody shows up and takes a picture, and now all of a sudden 100,000 people have seen
Oh my gosh.
what it really looks like versus what you sold me before I got here. That is so important. Yeah, guest reviews and social media is instant. It's really hard to backtrack and recover from just one negative post about what your bathroom actually looks like versus what it looked like when I booked.
Exactly. And that comes back to what we were talking about with the staff, right? And how well that they're maintaining those spaces so that you can ensure that there's that continuity. Can you talk to us a little bit about that and the staff experience and how that plays in to the overall profitability of a brand?
Staff experience from a customer relations standpoint is very important. I think anybody that works in any kind of service industry, whether it's hotels, restaurants, you name it, how friendly and good your staff is to your customers is so important. The flip side of that, as being a hotelier or being a resort itself, making everything as easy as possible for the staff to do the job is one thing that keeps the staff in a much better place when it comes to their customer interactions. Thinking along the lines, not to get too granular, but thinking along the lines, your housekeepers have interactions with your customers all the time. If the room is laid out and designed poorly and it's impossible to clean, then the housekeeper is, you're running into potential situations where the housekeeper can't come in and be that super pleasant person because you've set them up with an extremely challenging task. Cleaning a room isn't that hard, but if it's not designed right and you're not using the right materials and you've got all sorts of different countertop colors that they have to scrub versus they're able to just wipe and move away, that experience with the customer it can be so much better when the staff is happier, when you design and build and operate a hotel where the staff can do their job as easily as possible.
Right. And feel good while, and feeling like they're not just another number, also, back of house, amenities as well, like the staff room and all of those kind of things, because there's less churn. When they feel good, there's less churn, and they'll be willing to do a better job.
Yeah.
Which then translates into, the guest experience as well.
Yeah, and I think, as a business owner or as an operator, you're never going to be able to make your staff 100% happy all of the time. But doing small things from a layout and design, like you mentioned, like the staff room, having good food, having comfortable chairs in the break room, giving them the right tools, simple tools that they need in order to get the job done. Those are the important things. It's about making the staff as comfortable as possible, so that they can provide the best. Providing the experience to the customer is an added benefit to the day, not an inconvenience to the challenges they're already dealing with.
What do you feel about PIP plans? Like, do you find that your clients will often have those in their SOPs, in their plans, or do you find that properties are often getting dated and you having to come in and guide them towards ensuring that there is that continuity? It
depends on the scale of the scale and expectations of the hotel. There are a lot of hotels that are out there that are tired. They're worn out. There's a lot of hotels based on where they want to be as in a classification of hotel, whether it's 4 or 4.5, even though that doesn't officially exist, 5-star property. There is an expectation that the PIP plan, is followed, whether that's every 2 years, every 3 years, every 4 years. Full renovations tend to be stretched out to longer periods of time, but maintenance of basic product is something that usually happens every 2 to 3 years. If the bigger resort or a higher end hotel is doing their customer, I don't quite know what the right term would be for it, but their maintenance of the building properly. Linens and towels and things, that's a daily, weekly, monthly kind of management. Furniture, that's probably every 6 month, 1 year, 2 year. Then you start getting into full bathroom renovations, which may happen every 5, 8, 10 years.
Do you find that when they don't do those things, that then their revenue slips?
Absolutely, 100%. And the reason being is because over time, it becomes much more visible to the bottom line. You'll start to see some negative reviews, then you'll start to see a few more negative reviews, and then all of a sudden time goes on and you've got a slew of, the place was great, the staff was wonderful, the food was magic, but it was a bit run down. Yeah. This was a bit old, this could have been replaced. And then over time, again, when we go back to the social media side of things and how everything's aggregated through Google and customer service scores, it starts to build and build and build, where it's maybe not necessarily negative, but it's not 100% positive.
Right.
And that starts to impact when your competitor, who's next door, down the street, round the corner, half a mile down the beach, but they just did a remodel a year ago, and you don't see any comments about, or any negative comments about any aspect of features of the property. Whereas yours is continuation of a little bit old, a little bit tired. Yeah.
And then the pictures start. Yeah.
Then the pictures start coming. And again, what a lot of GMs and owners realize is that it's not that the comments are negative. It's just there's always the but.
Yeah.
And over time, that builds and builds and builds and builds. And it just becomes an ongoing message, which of course, if you're in an area and you've got great competitors around you, people are going to pick the other properties before they pick you.
And it takes good management to also recognize that it's not just somebody that's sour, but this is really something that you should take into consideration. Because even with any of our design plans, we don't just dive right into the program and say, okay, we need to create a concept. We first do analysis, the comps, reviews. We speak to the staff. We survey current customers or guests to find out what is their experience, because you can't just do a redesign or update without really taking into consideration their experience, their boots on the ground. Same with staff. Before a hotel opens, will sleep in the rooms before they open the doors, right? To work out all the kinks and work out all the little details. I think it's a cautionary tale to management and in general owners to really take a hard look at the reviews and say, okay, hey, there's something going on here. Let's make an update.
Yeah, and I think I've had a few properties do this, a few very, very savvy and very experienced GMs. Plans have been made, mock-up rooms have been designed. Everybody loves it and thinks it's absolutely beautiful and wonderful. But they were smart enough to bring in their best housekeepers, not their executive housekeeper, their top housekeeper, and one of their bellmen. Bring your cart, bring your tools, tell me what's wrong.
Wow.
Does this work? Is that too low? Am I going to chip the corner of this when I bring the bell cart in?
Wow.
Do you have enough room to move in this bathroom to clean it properly? If we need to do carpet shampooing, is the machine going to fit through the door? And you pick up little tidbits, and then you can take that back to the designer. And then 6 months later, you haven't dinged all of the closet corners or chipped all the doors or knocked the corner off the desk, because they thought about bringing in the people that work in this space on a daily basis. Tell me, does this work?
Exactly.
Does this not work? Is that in the way? Do I need to redesign that?
Exactly.
So
that's exactly what I'm
such a smart thing to do, and it's something that some people just don't forget. You don't have to redesign your whole concept, but it's like, okay, maybe this desk is half a foot too long.
Right.
Maybe we need to file down these cabinet doors or round these corners on this finishing, because the second a bellman cart hits it, it's going to just chip it right off.
Exactly. Wow, I love that. I love that they're doing that. That's exactly what I like. I preach every day. I'm like, you need to get everybody else's eyes on it, not just, the top people.
You get into this where those at the top, ownership obviously has their desires and wants, the GM, but it's just like, you're not the one in the space every day. At least take the time and ask them.
Correct. Because it could save so much. Talking about ROI, it saves so much down the line.
Yes. Especially if you're in a resort destination like in the Caribbean, you have to keep replacing chairs or keep refinishing cabinets. That gets expensive.
Correct.
And you have to ship stuff in, and there's all the taxes implied, and it can get very expensive doing preventative maintenance that you really wouldn't need to do if you'd just taken a couple of extra steps in, okay, does this really work?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So how do you get buy-in? What's the biggest thing that drives customers to book and to come back and to give good reviews?
That's always the tough question. I mean, first of all, you have to have a great product. Second of all, you have to have great service, but you really need to know what your target audience is. What you find on the marketing side of hotels, especially on the boutique side, is you're marketing to a very small piece of the customer database. Because if you're going for that 4.5, 5-star range, you're expecting to charge a certain amount, but then you're going for a certain level of clientele. And when you do that, you've got to make sure that everything is competitive to where you want to be, because otherwise you start spending money to market to people that will never either be able to afford your product or can't afford. They'll come once a year versus three times a year or 5 times a year. So knowing your market. It's one thing to build a fabulous product. It's another thing to be able to market it to your target clientele.
Yes, audience is everything.
It
Knowing.
really is. I know I've seen so many efforts where so much money has been spent on advertising in very high-end luxury publications or spending an absolute fortune on a social media campaign, but it was targeted to the wrong audience for that particular destination.
Wow.
It's great to say that we need to get more millennials to come to our property. Okay, but the Gen X or older are the ones that are usually footing the bill, and they're the ones that come all the time, and they're the ones with more disposable income and more disposable free time. So yeah, you'll get a Gen Xer or a millennial to come. There's a huge discussion over the last couple of years, especially with millennials and the new version of young adults. They like to try something different each and every time. They want to come back to the same resort. Whereas the grandparents, well, they always go to the Four Seasons in wherever, and they go twice a year, and they bring the whole family, and that's their spot. Whereas the younger generation's like, no, we did Korea last year. This year we're going to go to Botswana or Cape Town, and they just want to try different stuff. So continually marketing to someone who potentially isn't going to come back versus trying to attract the right customer who will come back it's a fine balance. We need to do a little bit of both.
Talk about strategic. I mean, that is just fascinating. There's so many nuances involved in marketing and creating the right positioning for the property. That I think it's really important to have the right strategic partners at the table with the right mix, and not just one person knows everything, but having the right team is so vital.
It really is. And I think if one thing I would advise a lot of the hotels that I work at are very small, they're not going to go hire power agencies, but there's bringing in an advertising agency for a short-term contract to help you lay out a plan for what you want. And then using some of these great services like Fiverr or Upworks and finding talented people to do marketing for you in areas where you want to attract customers from. Those are great. There's a lot of social media people, there's a lot of marketers, there's a lot of digital designers for advertising efforts all over the world. So if you want to try and go after European business, instead of hiring a power agency for your tiny little boutique property that you don't have the budget for, you can go on to some of these services and find somebody who's based in Europe. What's the temperament, the mentality, what do people like? I've got great photos, I've got great video, I've got some really good social, I've got some good media. How do I take that and use it best for the European market versus, say, the Latin American market versus, say, the Southeast Asian market? Going to the people that live in the region is always better than just hiring one agency to do it everywhere.
Especially when you have a strategic plan in place, and then you can go to them and just have them execute on that plan.
Yes.
It's vital. Question for you in terms of other industries, other verticals, and how hospitality could influence them. So for instance, multifamily or other investment properties. How do you see hospitality becoming a template for all these other kinds of industries?
I think there's aspects that you can take from the operational side as far as how you own and operate your unit. But I think really capitalizing on some of the unique ideas that hotels have done, resorts have done, brands have done with messaging. Multifamily units and long-term stay units and serviced residences. There's really some unique things that you can do to capitalize on some of the work that other properties have done and utilize those aspects and develop them into your advertising campaigns and efforts to help draw attention to what your customers that you're trying to attract.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that hospitality is totally the template for every other property out there. I think that people and experts like yourself within the hospitality industry understand the importance of visibility, of the online to offline, of the way a property is positioned, how it's designed. And I believe wholeheartedly that when an investor takes the time and attention and care to put those things in place for their units, for their property, they will see a massive return on investment and increase in property value.
And let's face it, we're not reinventing the wheel here. We're all selling a stay experience, whether that's short-term, long-term, or whatever it may be. Unlike a lot of different verticals where things are constantly changing, like in the IT world or in the tech world or personal technology devices and things of this nature, it's constantly evolving and changing and getting better and revamping its style and the way things work. In the hotel business or the hospitality business, we're selling an experience at that particular venue, whether that's a restaurant or a show or a hotel. So it's the same thing. It's just finding the right way to message it to attract the right customer.
Correct. Absolutely. Absolutely. So where do you think things are going in the hospitality world? Any trends or any direction you see things changing?
I don't know what the next change is going to be. Currently, right now, the big thing is, and again, I think it comes back to an age group or a generation, the variety and the wellness aspect. It's something that's just heavily marketed. It is something that's obviously very desired. There's a lot of different ways to promote the facilities that you may have, whether it be up in the mountains, whether it's hiking, whether it's a spa retreat, massage facilities, these kinds of things. Experiential wellness experience is something that's really taken to the forefront as of late. I see it a lot with the boutique hotels that I look at and the destinations that I like to visit. It's something that's become very prevalent, and how that is attracting the younger demographic. I think that's the best choice of word versus using a Gen X versus Gen Z versus millennials. Again, the younger demographic is very mobile. They want to see different things. They want to experience different cultures. They tend to travel for slightly longer. This whole concept of being a digital nomad and grabbing your laptop and just rocking up and hanging out in Bali for 3 months and working, or going to Thailand or maybe Vietnam or maybe somewhere in Africa. This isn't something that older generations would have even dreamed of doing.
Yes.
Now it's, if you're 18, 19, 20 to 30, 32, 35, you're almost on the outside if you haven't done that for 6 months, 3 months or whatever. Yeah. And I think it's really, really important that hotels embrace that, especially on the boutique side. Creating that environment where people can experience that for a longer length of stay. It's people aren't just showing up Monday through Friday and then going home. They're looking for places to stay for 8 days, 10 days, 12 days, 15 days, and then move on to the next spot in that destination and spend another 15 days. So it's a very drastic change from what it was for my age group. Most of my friends and family, they take that vacation. They're not planning 6 months or 3 months worth of work and travel time as one.
And that really comes back to knowing your audience, right? Doing the market research, speaking to them, hearing what they, how they express themselves, what they want, what their desires, that creating that dream, that vision for them, right? So that they can envision themselves there, is really key.
And I think it's very geographically specific too. I mean, not many Americans do a gap year, whereas in Europe, it's very, very popular. Mm-hmm. The tendency of Europeans and Asians and Africans to travel between different countries, in the Middle East as well, because of proximity.
Right.
It's real easy to get around Asia. It's real easy to get around the Middle East if you want to try that. When I say easy, a 2-hour flight, a 2.5-hour flight, versus Americans jumping on a plane and it's 8 hours to get anywhere. Yes. It's a very different mentality and a very different concept depending on what part of the world you're in.
This has been so much fun, and your perspective is so insightful. I would love to leave our audience with 3 key things, 3 top pieces of advice that you could give them to increase revenue and increase that ROI for their businesses.
Having a simplistic booking engine tied to a beautiful website. Once a customer is ready to book, don't confuse them anymore with anything else other than booking their room. Always, always, always have quality pictures. Always. It's so important for the heart and soul aspect of what people see when they see your property. And just make sure that you give your staff the tools to do the job.
Amazing. This has been so insightful. Thank you so much for jumping on the show. And if anyone wants to find you and speak more with you, how can they do that?
Everyone's welcome. They can reach out to me. My website is www.adrglobalhos.com. It's got a list of details on everything on there, but there's a contact page. And a phone number, and they're welcome to reach out. I'm happy to have conversations with anyone and everyone about the industry and the aspects and the topics that we've talked about today.
Amazing. Thank you so much, John.
Thank you, and I appreciate the time.